Good afternoon. I am Saad Al-Aziz, the owner and head instructor of Semper Fortis Jiu Jitsu here in San Antonio, Texas, and here to tackle this week's question of the week. It comes from one of our students. Asked, when is it appropriate to use your weight and your strength to your advantage in training? And excellent question. It's a question that everybody really struggles with. Like, when should you explode? When should you use your quickness? When should you use your strength? Those things that are clearly an asset for you. And in regards to strength and weight, I would say use it more when you're training, sparring with somebody that's close to your size and strength. Because then that's a more realistic picture of how your weight and your strength will benefit you in a tournament. Because let's say you're 300 pounds. If when you roll with a 115-pound person, you're using all your strength and all your weight throughout the roll, well, yeah, you're stronger than them. Yeah, you're bigger than them. It's a big problem for that 115-pound person, and it could be a good training session for them. But for you, it's giving you an unrealistic tournament prep, because when you go into a tournament, you're not facing a 115-pound person that you're way stronger and way bigger than. You're going to face another 300-pound person or bigger that's just as strong or stronger than you. And then you get a more accurate description and picture of like what your strength will do for you. So if in training, if you're using your physical assets more than technique in order to make it through the roll, then it will hinder your growth, because what you need to do is focus on the techniques in training, especially when you're going against smaller people that aren't as strong. You should be focusing more on technique and less on using your physical attributes, because it's an amazing attribute. Like a 300-pound person who is very strong and big, their ability to stay on top of somebody, hold somebody down, smash them, put a lot of pressure on them is definitely an asset for sure. But will you also be able to do that against another 300-pound person? That's when you really find out, where your strength is and what the benefit is going to be. Against a 115-pound person, man, that's a tremendous asset when you outweigh him, when you're, over 2 times as big as them, much stronger than him. That's a tremendous asset, which is one of the reasons that it's really harder to teach big, strong guys jiu-jitsu than it is smaller guys or females. Because, say a 115-pound female, she doesn't have the option of using her athleticism and strength in the roll. Or, a smaller guy, he doesn't have that option. So he has to really nail the technique. The technique's got to be perfect for him, for it to work. Whereas, say a 250, 300, 350, 400-pound guy, who's big, strong, he can get away with some bad techniques, especially against smaller people, because, he's big and strong. And I talked about in another video, I had a guy in here. He was over 400 pounds, and I think he used to, play football. He was very athletic. He was very strong, and he was doing a private lesson with Mike Fowler here, and Mike went to show him a sweep from the bottom, and the guy's like, "Hey, I don't need to learn any bottom stuff. I want to focus on top attacks because I intend on staying on top." And that. He was a white belt, this 400-pound guy, but he was a tremendous athlete, very strong, of course, 400 pounds, very big. And he wasn't interested in learning any bottom game. He just wanted to focus on the top. And that's the challenge of teaching someone like that jiu-jitsu, because they just want to focus on the top. And when they roll with smaller people, a lot of times they can stay on top, especially if that smaller person doesn't have the technique to sweep them or, put them on the bottom. So, they could stay on top, and that size and strength is an advantage. But what happened with that guy is the first time he went into a tournament, it was against somebody who was just about as big as he was, just as strong as he was, and now he found himself on the bottom, being smashed, and he didn't have an answer for it. He had no idea how to get out, and he ended up just verbally tapping, not even from a submission. He was just lost. He was like, I can't get out. And then I think his cardio gave out on him, and he just couldn't go. So it's so much easier, to teach a smaller person, who's not as athletic, who's not as strong, because they have to get the technique right. They can't get by with just their strength. So if you're gifted with a lot of size and a lot of strength, you should focus more on the technique. And so when you roll, let's say you're 300 pounds and you're rolling with a 150-pound person, you should willingly take the bottom. Work on your bottom game with that person, because that will help you a lot in the training. Vice, if you just stay on top of a person who you're twice their size, and you just stay on top and you smash them throughout the roll with your weight and your strength, you're not getting much out of it. They're learning a lot, because they're learning, like how to get out of that and deal with that strength and size, but you're not getting a lot out of it because you're able to hold them down just, through your size and strength. So instead, I would suggest that when there's a big size discrepancy between you and your training partner and your sparring, aka rolling, that you take the bottom. Let that person work the top and work your defense from the bottom, and see if you can get the sweeps or see if you can get the submissions from the bottom. And that will help you, and it will help them. And then when you're rolling with somebody your size, with comparable strength, comparable to your size, comparable to your strength, then that's a good time, especially if you're getting ready for a tournament, to use more of your strength, use more of your athleticism. And that could be, your quickness, your explosiveness, to get ready for the tournament. But you should initially focus on hitting the technique perfectly, using minimal strength. See if you can do that especially against smaller training partners. And then when you're going against people similar to your size, use more strength, because especially if they're using strength, then it's strength on strength, and you get an adequate or an accurate read on how much your strength would benefit you in a tournament. It's like if you're 400 pounds, your strength will benefit you greatly against a 150-pound person. Absolutely, But how much benefit will your strength do for you against another 400-pound person? Now, that's the question. And that's when your technique is going to be much more important. It's when you're going against somebody your size and your strength, or bigger than you and stronger than you. Now, like if your technique is garbage and you've just been relying on your size and strength to get you through these rolls, things are going to go badly for you in the tournament. So to close it out, if you're big and strong, when to use your size and strength, I would recommend when you're going against people your size and strength, when that's a more equal playing field. And when you're going against smaller people, you should work on focusing on specifically your techniques, executing techniques, and being able to hit it and make those techniques work, not because you're powering through it, but because you're hitting the technique correctly and you're so efficient at the technique, it works for you. All right, that's this week's question. If you got a question for next week, you can post it below. Or if you're a big, strong person and you got some insight on how you're training and growing, feel free to share that below. And I'll tackle a question next week. All right, ciao.